Welcome to Advent of Tessellations 2025. My name is Madonna Yoder, and you're joining hundreds of folders around the world on this 25-day journey into the infinite world of repeating patterns folded from a single sheet of paper. You'll discover many different twists in this challenge, building up to advanced patterns with flagstone motifs of trapezoid twists. On day 2 of Advent of Tess 2025, we're folding a pattern I designed named Courtship. And it's named that because there are these big triangles and little triangles in pairs wandering all over. All of these twists are on the same side of the paper, and they're closed and open. So closed has these teeny tiny holes, and open has these 1 grid triangle per edge holes. And we get to use both of them in equal number, actually, all across this pattern. So let's go ahead and dive in. I've got my 24 division triangle grid on a hexagon. And if you don't have your triangle grid ready, head on over to training.gatheringfolds.com/advent. Sign up, you'll get the tutorial on how to fold them and my recommendations on what paper to use and what options I have available to make the folding process easier. So let's start in the middle. I'm going to fold my paper along a grid line that goes to 2 corners, and then fold again on another grid line that goes to a corner to find the center of the paper. And with the center located, we can go ahead and zoom in. So I'm going to start by drawing some parts of the crease pattern on the paper. Specifically, I'm going to draw a valley fold horizontally 2 spaces above the center, and I'm going to start drawing right above the center and draw for 2 spaces to the right and 2 spaces to the left. Then I'm going to draw a mountain fold. And by the way, dashed blue lines are always valley folds for me. Solid red lines are always mountain folds. This mountain fold, so given that I started 2 spaces above the center and drew 2 spaces to the right, this mountain fold in this direction will be 3 spaces away from the center. And I'm specifically drawing it to stop 2 spaces past the valley fold, because in addition to this valley fold there is another mountain fold 1 space out, and I'm going to use these mountain folds to outline 1 grid triangle. And then, like this valley fold is hitting further away, notice the valley fold is parallel to the flat edge of the outlined triangle and further out. So we never want a situation where the valley fold is hitting the corner of the triangle. That is a setup for a cursed triangle twist, and we're going for open triangle twists. So our valley folds in the other 2 directions are going to be 1 space out from the flat side of the triangle outlined by the mountain folds. And with this all set up, I'm going to go ahead and pick up each of those mountain folds as mountain folds. And when you're starting the setup, I really only worry about the mountain folds. And I'm making sure to fold those mountains all the way out to the edges of the paper. And then once the mountain is happy all the way to the edge, I can lay it down over the valley fold. So once again, I find where the mountain needs to be, then I extend that mountain to the edge of the paper, and then put the valley fold on the appropriate side. So for this third one, find the mountain, I extend it to the edge of the paper, put the valley fold on the appropriate side. Notice in this whole process, I've kept my center in the same orientation relative to the triangle. And for the open triangle twist, the key thing is that we're pressing outside of where the triangle is squashing. So we're pressing just outside of where the valley fold hits the next direction of mountain fold on all three of these pleats at once. And the closer you are to where the valley fold hits, but still staying on the outside, the easier that will squash. And the key things to pay attention to here is we want to make sure that those valley folds stay on the grid lines, and we want to make sure that we're pressing outside of where the twist is flattening. So a common mistake I see is that people will grab this mountain fold and then try to squash, but that's preventing that area from flattening out. So we want to make sure, like if your paper is trying to swing and have the valley fold move from under the mountain, we want to make sure that the pleats are held firmly in place and we can work our way in until we get that triangle flat. And just like we did for the closed triangles yesterday, we'll press from the top and smooth out our open triangle twist. And I do have a video on just folding this open triangle twist, looking at the crease pattern for it and all of those details. You can find that on my YouTube channel or in the Summer of Twists series. And I also have a tutorial inside of Basic Twist Bootcamp and another one in Tessellation Starter Sequence that has a pattern with only these open triangle twists. So those are good resources to practice this further. And you can find all of my courses at training.gatheringfolds.com. But for today's purposes, we're going to continue onwards. And our next twist is going to be a closed triangle twist with its center one space out on this pleat to the left. And that means that, solid line. That means that my three-way intersection of mountains, one space out, my valley fold corresponding to this mountain is hitting exactly at the open triangle corner. Now I'm right-handed. I prefer to work on things on my right-hand side. So now that I've marked that situation, I'm going to grab it and rotate my paper halfway around. And we can see that center point is now above the open triangle, and I've got this horizontal pleat out to the right. Now I'm going to set up this closed triangle twist. And the important thing to recognize the first time that you're folding these patterns with triangle twists, or first time you're folding origami tessellations in general, is that we are going to need to erase some of these pleats that are going out to the edge in order to put in the new twists. So I'm going to set up this pleat that I drew in, and I'll make sure to open and erase the continuation of this horizontal pleat. So that's going away so that I can put in the third mountain fold of this three-way intersection. And then the valley is going to be below and to the right of that new mountain fold. And with that set up, I can press just outside of one grid spacing from the center on all three pleats at the same time to squash. And the corners of our two twists should meet right at a grid intersection. Okay. From here, I'm going to take this pleat going up to the right around the center and make that my new horizontal pleat going out to the right. For this pattern, we're going to see that all open triangle twists have pleats going to closed triangle twists all closed triangle twists have all 3 pleats going to open triangle twists, but we'll see different spacings on different sides. So on this horizontal pleat, we are going to see an extra space relative to this tight spacing. And so the valley fold for the new twist will hit 1 space out from the corner of the previous triangle. Then my mountain fold will hit 1 space further. And since we're coming from a closed triangle, this will be an open triangle twist. Therefore, I have my first direction of mountain. This is my second direction of mountain. My third direction of mountain is going to enclose this grid triangle. And then I can set up my second pleat and open the overshoot of my first pleat until I can put in my third pleat. And again, when we're seeing what side of the mountain fold should the valley fold go on for this third pleat, it's important to pay attention to which side of the outline triangle we're working on. This is the flat side, therefore this is the side of the valley fold. We want to move the valley fold further away from the pointy end of the triangle, so we're going to move it out here. And once we have this open triangle twist set up, we can press to squash. And again, we want to avoid pressing too close to that central triangle, so we want to work from further out and get that triangle puffing up, then smooth it from the top into position. From here, I'm going to take this new pleat that's going around the center and rotate. Now I have 2 parallel pleats running horizontally out to the right, and I'm going to repeat the steps that we saw to get from the first open triangle to the closed one. I'm going to have my new valley fold come right to my open triangle corner, my new mountain fold 1 space further away, and since this will be a closed triangle twist, my third mountain fold will come to the same grid intersection as the other 2. This will create a pleat overlap, so that top pleat of the parallel pleats we are leaving fully folded as we fold through to put in our new closed triangle twist. And once we have it, we can press to squash. Rotating once again. This time I want the pleat overlap pointing out to the right, so not any one particular pleat. And I'm going to follow the same rule that I set up between my previous closed triangle and open triangle, where my valley fold is going to hit 1 space out from that closed triangle corner, and that valley is also going to hit 1 space out from the open triangle corner up above. And for starters, for this overlap, I'm going to set up my 2 3-way intersections that are 3 grid spacings apart. So I'll open up first one pleat and then the other, setting up these 3-way intersections of mountain folds, and then I'll lay them down flat on top. Now I need to turn these into an open triangle twist and a closed triangle twist, but this is a good staging area for that, since we're going to have the twist corners meeting somewhere in the middle. Now, I'm going to draw on the extension of my mountain fold on this side and draw my new mountain fold for that open triangle twist and the new valley up above. So this valley and then mountain is going to need to move. The mountain moves one space over, and then the valley jumps to the far side in order to create our next open triangle twist, which we can then press to squash. From there, I'm going to turn this three-way intersection of mountain folds into a closed triangle twist. I'm going to keep the mountain fold in the same place and move this valley to the far side. So the other two pleats are already going to twist. They stay in place. Flipping the pleat over makes the twist stand up, and then we can press to squash. Okay, awesome. So we've got our first 6 twists of the pattern. And there's a traditional pattern that also has these alternating, like, closed triangle, open triangle, but with the corners of all of them touching. And the reason why I didn't go with that one in this tutorial is because it can't be centered on a grid intersection. So there's a lot of things that I've realized with folding hundreds, frankly thousands of origami tessellations over the last several years. And one of them is that we don't have to use all of the symmetry that's available. And that's a bit of math speak, but basically saying we don't have to do the same thing on all 3 sides of these triangle twists. And we can come up with all kinds of new patterns using that kind of cheat code. First, for right now though, I'm going to continue on this pleat coming out to the edge from the closed triangle twist we just made. So I'm going to move that until it's horizontal out to my right hand side. And I'm going to come 1 extra space out on that pleat to put my next open triangle twist. So 1 extra space, and then my valley fold and my mountain fold. And this is going to be an open triangle because it's on a plate coming from a closed triangle. And my 3rd direction of mountain folds will enclose the target grid triangle. I can set up first one pleat and then the other, and make sure that my valley folds are on the right sides. Right as in correct in this case. And then press just outside of the corners to squash the twist. From here, I'm going to continue around counterclockwise. So I'll rotate this pair of parallel pleats to be right next to me. And this is where I'm looking at the crease pattern. I'm looking to see, okay, what is my spacing on this one? Because there's always options with how exactly in what order you get all these twists on the paper. But for today's purposes, we're just going with, I'm telling you how to do it, and you can learn a lot more about how I know what way to go around and how to do this and that and the other in Tessellation starter sequence. So in this situation, I'm going to come an extra space out. So my next twist will not hit at the corner. It'll hit 1 space out. And because the plate is coming from an open triangle twist, it will be a closed triangle twist. And I can set up that new closed triangle and press to squash. And then I'll have my next twist. So I'll have my next interaction of pleats, my next pair of twists. I know that from this triangle I need an extra space, and that's the rule for this pattern as a whole. So we have the alternation between the closed and the open triangles. We have the spacing where there's an extra space on 2 pleats and only 1 where the corners touch. And you can find more regularities, like in this loop, there's space further out and the corners are touching closer in. In this loop, there's going to be extra space between all of the twists. And in the next loop, there's going to be connected further out and space closer in. So there's a whole bunch of ways to think about the pattern. And these 3 loops, by the way, are the positions of symmetry in that broader pattern. But for right now, what I want to bring your attention to is that in order to resolve this pleat overlap, we're going to have a valley that hits 1 space out from each of these triangle corners. And the mountain follows 1 grid spacing away. And we can set up our 2 3-way intersections. Now this one at the bottom is going to need to be an open twist because it's directly connected to a closed twist. So I will push my mountain fold 1 grid spacing out. So that mountain now outlines 1 grid triangle. And my valley jumps to the far side. I'm going to pay extra attention to this pleat that has just 1 space until the edge of the paper. I'm going to hold that down and then press on the other 2 pleats to spread my open triangle twist. Then at my other 3-way intersection, I'm making a closed triangle. We see these 2 open triangles feeding in, and I can take that grid line that's folded as a mountain and pivot it over so the valley's on the far side and press to squash. Then continuing around, I have this other set of parallel pleats, and here's where I'm going to jump to the top of the stairs. So we can look at these layers like stairs. We're at the bottom, then we step up, then we step up. I'm starting at the top of the stairs to make the overlaps easier to work with. And I'm going to have my valley fold 1 space out from this closed triangle corner, my mountain fold 1 space further, and it's coming from a closed triangle, so this needs to be an open triangle twist. What I like to do is go ahead and set up the whole thing kind of in 1 swoop, but that does take quite a bit of visualization. So if you want to find the second pleat and then open up the overshoot of the first pleat to find that new triangle twist, that's also an excellent way to do it. And then we can press to squash. And now we would have a pleat overlap, but we are off the edge of the paper. This pair of pleats is going to be resolved with 2 more triangle twists, and the corners are going to touch between each of these twists that are setting up the overlap and their next neighbors. So the valley fold that runs across here goes from the open triangle corner that we just folded down to this closed triangle corner. Our mountain fold is one space away, and we can go ahead and set that up as two three-way intersections of pleats. From there, I'm going to work on the bottom intersection first, which needs to be an open triangle because it's directly connected to a closed triangle. And I'm going to push the mountain fold one space further out so I can outline that target grid triangle and jump the valley to the far side. Again, this part really close to the edge, I'm going to give extra attention to hold it nice and flat while I press the other two sides. And then my top intersection, I'm going to flip the mountain over and squash the closed triangle twist. One great thing with these patterns is that even if you draw in the valley folds, you'll never see it in the finished form. You might see some in backlighting, but you won't see anything you draw on valley folds because they get hidden by the paper folding. Continuing, I'm going to work on this pleat off of this open triangle. So I'm going to take that pair of parallel pleats and put them over on my right hand side. Off of this corner, I can say, well, this open triangle already has a close neighbor. This next twist must be one space further out. And my valley fold will hit one space away. My mountain, my three-way intersection of mountains will hit one space further. And this will cause a pleat overlap really close to the edge. And press to squash. Then to resolve that overlap, I'm going to do just like we did two sets of parallel pleats ago and have my valley fold one space out from both the open and the closed triangle holes. And I can tell that it's time to do that because there's an extra space between each of these interactions. And every time we have a loop of 6 twists, we're going to see the same interaction 3 different times, alternating with another interaction. So from there, I'll set up my 2 three-way intersections and lay them down flat. Then this bottom one is going to turn into an open triangle twist. And I encourage you, if you need more structure, more support with these instructions, go back in the video to the first time that I taught it. It's exactly the same steps as before. We're going to push this mountain fold one space up, put the valley on the far side, and I'm holding this pleat that has 1 grid spacing before it hits the edge of the paper firmly flat while I press the other 2 pleats to squash my open triangle twist. And then the top intersection will flip the pleat going to the edge and squash the closed triangle. Now on my next set of parallel pleats that I'll rotate to be horizontal out to my right, I'm going to jump to the top of the stairs, and I'm going to have an extra space before my valley fold. My mountain will be 1 space further away. And again, this is exactly repeating some steps that we've seen earlier. And this will be an open triangle twist because it's attached on its pleat to the closed triangle twist, so my third direction of mountains will enclose one grid triangle. One important thing to know is that it looks like that line is the same line down here, but once you open it up, you can see that those are different grid lines. So it's always important to find your open triangle twist with references from the middle of the twist. And really any twist. It's important to find your references from the middle of the twist and not from anywhere like the edge of the paper. And references from the edge of the paper often will change if you use a different grid. And one of the great things about tessellations is you can repeat it as much as you want on whatever grid you like. And so if you wanted to, for example, repeat this pattern on 32 grid divisions, which I believe is what I've done for this full version, then you get the exact repeats of the center, but your references at the edges are going to be a bit different. But anyways, returning to our pattern at hand, here for our next pleats that are headed towards overlap, we're going to resolve them with more triangle twists. And one of the things we can see is, well, this corner has twists close together, and this is a loop of 6 triangles. So these two corners must also have the twists close together. So our valley fold is going to go from one triangle corner to another triangle corner. Our mountain fold on that is going to be 1 grid spacing away from the valley, and we can find our 3-way intersections. From there, I'm going to work on the bottom intersection first, which needs to be an open triangle twist. So I'm going to push this mountain fold 1 grid spacing over. So we outline that target and grid triangle. And then my valley fold jumps over, and we can press and squash the new open triangle twist. From there, I'll go up to this top interaction of pleats and flip my mountain fold down so that I can squash my new closed triangle twist. From here, I'll take the next set of parallel pleats and rotate. This time I have 1, 2, 3 parallel pleats, and I'm starting with the one that is the topmost layer. This open triangle already has a close neighbor, so it needs a far neighbor. I'm going to have my valley hit 1 space out from the open triangle corner. My mountain will be 1 space further away, and I'll make that 3-way intersection of mountains because coming from an open triangle, I need to go to a closed one. And press to squash. This does cause the pleat overlap that we've seen before. And if we were using a larger grid, that pleat would go on to overlap with the 3rd parallel pleat as well. Now to resolve that pleat overlap, we're going to do the same thing we did before, which is put our valley fold 1 space out from both of these triangle corners. And I'm going to start by finding my 3-way intersections and laying them down over the top. Then on the intersection connected to a closed triangle, I'm going to push that mountain fold up to outline the target grid triangle and put my valley up above and press to squash. On the upper intersection, I'm going to need a closed triangle because it's connected to these open triangles, and I can press to squash. Now for my final would-be overlap, if I had any more grid, I'm going to need my new triangle twist to come exactly to the corners of these existing triangles. And that means my valley will hit both of those corners. My mountain will be one space further out. And I'll set up my two three-way intersections of pleats. Then for the lower intersection, it's connected to a closed triangle, so it needs to be an open triangle. I'll shift the mountain fold one space up, put the valley on the far side, hold that short pleat really firmly in place while I press at the other two corners to squash. For my final three-way intersection, I'm going to need a closed triangle twist, so I'm flipping that mountain fold over and pressing to squash. So that is what we're folding today for Courtship. And let's take a look at the backlighting of this pattern. Yesterday I was saying that the pattern was secretly groups of 4 triangles instead of groups of 6 and solo triangles. This pattern actually is groups of 6. You could think about it as groups of 2, but I like to think about it as groups of 6. And there's several tutorials in Tessellation Starter Sequence, my 50 lesson course on learning to read crease patterns and fold whatever tessellations you like, that deal specifically with groups of 6 triangle twists. So you can repeat this pattern and see copies of the center. You can also repeat this pattern with those copies of the center further apart. That's one of the features of this kind of pattern, the groups of 6. You can then space your groups however you like. And both of these two patterns are available as crease patterns in the Advent of Tess 2025 ebook, which you can find at gatheringfolds.com, origamiusa.org, and origamishop.com. So there's lots of options of how to fold more repeats of today's pattern. And there's for sure more options out there that I have not discovered. So I encourage you to learn more about origami tessellations, dive deep into the underlying math, start coming up with your own patterns. This is a branch of origami where it's really easy actually to come up with new designs. It's harder to know whether anyone else has folded them before, especially when you first start designing, but that is where being part of a community of tessellation folders can really help you figure out whether your design is unique or not. So I would love to see, as part of that community, I have a Discord server. I would love to see photos of what you folded. When you're signed up through training.gatheringfolds.com/advent, you get access to the link to join that server. And if you want to post publicly, you can tag me at Gathering Folds on Instagram and Facebook, and I'd love to see what you've folded from this tutorial. All right, happy folding everyone, and see you tomorrow when we're folding a pattern that has not only closed and open triangles, but also double open triangles. So we've got the points, the holes, and the great big holes. And this again will be folded all on the same side. You might recognize what's in the center. It's exactly what we folded today. So happy folding, and see you tomorrow.